The Detroit office came after that. We have a Baltimore office and a Richmond, Virginia, and a small studio in Madison, Wisconsin. It is great to be, as an architect, it is great to be part of a firm that has multiple disciplines under one roof. Like I told you in service, I've done a little history myself, so it is amazing to work alongside historians, cultural landscape, as well as architects and preservation architects all under one roof. So it has been my honor to be a part of this firm. Now coming up on 7 years, I can't believe that. But like I said in service, I'm Sandra Little. I'm an architect. I'm also principal in our Detroit office and director of diversity, equity, and inclusion for all of our offices. And it's an honor to be here with you today. Like Pastor said, we started working with the church right after they were awarded the Black Modernism Grant from the African American Heritage Fund that is hoping to fund this project. So it is an honor to kick it off. So we have an agenda where everyone on our team is going to speak with you today. We're going to go over the part 1 of the HSR, which means Historical Structures Report. We're going to go through the existing conditions that we found in the building, some analysis, some treatment recommendations, and schedule. And then we're going to ask for your input in this process as well as we get into it. That's what this is all about. We don't want to do it in a vacuum. We want to do it with the church. So like I said, I'm principal, but I have my team with me. Lauren is right here, project manager for us, and Ruth Mills, who I've been working on a lot of projects with in Detroit, from the 20th century civil rights sites and more. So Ruth is here with us, our senior historian. Dominique and Valerie are also on the team. Dominique is an architectural designer with the firm. She's not here, and Valerie is a historian in the firm. She's been helping with the write-up, and Dominique's been helping with, like the pastor said, there was a 3D laser scan of the building. So Dominique's been working with a 3D model for that and everything. And then we have an extended team with our engineers. So formerly Sylvan, which I knew, but now TYN, Lynn, and we have SES, which is our mechanical, electrical, and plumbing team. So we have multiple members, not all of them here today, but we do have one individual here from our structural engineering team. So our schedule, like I said, we started working with the church. We kicked off in October. Actually had the African American Heritage Fund members here. Brent Legg was here, and we were able to kick off the project. So since then, we have been gathering existing information. The 3D laser scan happened. Our team has been out here all throughout the building taking pictures and getting drawings and all of those things. And we're 50% of that schedule. So we have enough information now that we can actually have this visioning workshop. So we're right in the middle, March, of this schedule. So after this workshop, we will implement recommendations and programming moving forward and draft towards the final report. So this is where we are in the process. This is not the end, you're right in the middle. So you haven't missed anything. We've been just doing documentation work. So I'm going to hand it over to Ruth, our historian.
Thank you, Sandra. Good afternoon, everybody, and happy anniversary, 189. Yeah, that's amazing. So I'm just going to talk very briefly a little bit about the history and how we approach the historic part of the Historic Structures Report. So, you know, the way that we approach it is, you know, you have to know where you've been, you have to know where you are before you can, you know, figure out where you're going with something. So, you know, we did some research. You know, of course, there's an incredibly rich history, at here at Second Baptist, which, you know, we in the scope of work here, we can't completely do justice to it. Oh, I'm just messing with you, guys. So so what we do is, we look at the history first. We are focusing specifically on the education building for this effort, but recognizing that they are all intertwined and the history is all one thing. So the first thing that we do look at is, are there any historic designations that are associated with this place? And so of course there is. It's actually been designated twice in a way. So in 1975, the church was listed in the National Register of Historic Places. When that kind of documentation was done, it was very short and didn't have a lot of the background. And so a few years ago, there was an effort to amend the nomination, so really just add information. So looking at different historic contexts, providing more information, doing an update of what was still here and what wasn't. So we know, of course, that this is an exceptionally important institution in the social and religious life of the congregation and of Detroit, the state. So much important happened here, as far as the Underground Railroad. We know that's a big story. Civil rights and advocacy, just the building of community in this area. It's also associated with Reverend Robert L. Bradby, who was designated as a significant person in history, and so this place is associated with him. And then looking specifically at this building, it's the work of master architect Nathan Johnson, who was a pioneering black architect. Sandra can speak more about that. But we want to acknowledge that that's a really important part of the history here. So I don't need to go over the whole history, and you have some great historians here who can do the whole history. But we did kind of look at, okay, so what are some of the key periods and key dates that are associated with this place? Of course, the founding, 189 years ago, and then in 1857, when the congregation moved to this present site, in 1927 the annex was built. And then we come to specifically this building. So we know that the land was purchased in 1956, specifically because the church wanted to build an education building. In 1963, they contracted with Nathan Johnson, and this is really one of his most important works of architecture. And then the building was constructed from 1967 to 1968. And then, of course, it has not stood still, of course. We were looking at some of the things that have changed since that construction was done. So there was the big remodeling campaign in 1986, the kitchen of the fellowship hall being renovated in 2002, and then the facade update and some small interior projects that took place in 2005. This is just some of the interesting things that we found when we were doing research. So I think one of the really interesting things was this original what the education building was going to look like originally. Sort of Nathan Johnson's first pass at this. So you can see it's actually quite different. 4 stories, level glass, but still very characteristic of his style. So then on the right, you see at the top, that's of course a drawing of when he revised his drawing, and this is what it actually looks like and how it was actually built. And then this is a great photograph that we actually got out of one of the newspapers, and that is from right around 1967, 68, and that's a lot of kids who are playing on the roof. And you can see, there were some planters and benches and things like that. So it's always really great to get a picture like that because you see people who are actually using it and how important it is. So then, once we kind of know what the historic, what we're looking at, really like what physical things embody the importance of this place. And in the firm, we call that character-defining features. So I'll just go over these really quickly. We look at the site, so we know that this is a really important corner in Greektown, and that neighborhood. It's a really significant part of what makes this place this place. The precast concrete panel cladding which is, the horizontal elements and then the vertical elements. That flat roof with the overhanging canopy, very characteristic of the design by Clayton Johnson. The vertical and the horizontal curtain walls, so the way that the building is actually physically constructed on the outside. There have been some changes in the front, on the first floor, but there are still like the concrete and stone landings, and there's stairs with the metal handrails, which are important. And then of course the roof garden with that view. On the interior, we look at things like the concrete block walls, which maybe don't sound very exciting, but they are very characteristic of how this was built. There are this terrazzo floor that you see here in the fellowship hall, and the vinyl tile flooring that's throughout all the other floors. These full height glass curtain walls on the upper floors are very important to defining the character of this place. The central corridor with the small classrooms, the offices around the perimeter, so the layout is what we're looking at there. The folding divider walls of the third floor classroom, so it's really important this place had some flexibility for what it was going to be used for. And then these flat panel doors with the transects. So that's kind of like looking at the past, looking at what is physically important about this. We'll talk about this a little bit later, but we also need to hear from you, like, what is important, what you feel is important about this place. What are the important values that are associated with this? So I will now turn it over to Helen.
Thank you. So our team, as well as Jenna, who's from TY Lynn, we were here surveying the building for a couple days. We are going to talk a little bit about what we saw on those days. It does not mean that it is, the final kind of condition of the building. There's important things to think about. We want to hear from you. We also want to hear if you have seen anything since, things on rain days. Those kind of things are all really important to kind of gather the full information of your building. So the first thing we wanted to show you was what a laser scan looks like for your building, and it is actually of all three buildings. This is a really powerful and useful tool for you moving into the future. Basically, it is a recording of what your building is on this day that they scanned, but it is complete, all the walls, all the ceilings, all the floors, and you can see how this image is actually just a bunch of small dots that they collected, and then it almost looks like a full picture. So I have a couple more shots of that, just kind of all four corners. So I just really wanted to show you how complete this is. And you can also see that they also scanned the basement, which was a really big deal because a lot of your documentation that you have, the drawings that you have, were kind of pieced together, and so having this is going to be really helpful for your team moving forward. So we're going to talk first about the architectural conditions overall, and we're keeping it just to the education building that we're in right now. The building is in good condition. It is, about 60 years old, over 60 years old, so there's typical wear and tear of the materials that you're going to find consistent to the age. Your exterior panels, some of them have cracks and spalls. It's mostly staining that we're finding on the outside, so those are in good condition. As you know, that there are some stains on your ceiling tiles up in multiple different areas, and that's pretty typical. You have leaks from HVAC equipment, things like that. All of those can cause that to happen. And then you don't have a lot of broken windows. You do have some, especially I think there's a couple down here on the main floor, but overall your windows are in good condition, which is great because that is a safety hazard as well as we don't want to have any broken glass. Now, there are areas that are in poor condition. They're mostly located along the third floor, and we will talk in depth about these conditions that we saw. And also, the sealant on your exterior panels and your windows are as old as your building itself, and sealant is the weakest part, so they're in poor condition, deteriorated, things like that. The roof canopy that is up above the overhang roof canopy, we did see some damage and deterioration of that stucco finish there. And so that is something that we noted. And then, like I said before, that third floor, especially along the exterior, and as well as in the stairwell. And I know Jenna is going to talk a little bit more about that stairwell that you see up there.
So Quinn Evans is giving you the holistic view of the building, but they call me in to look more at the structural materials and the structural conditions. So most people that see what I'm doing when I'm walking around the building ask me, is the building going to fall down? Because that's kind of where I'm asked to guide my expertise and experience and look around and be the detective of what's going on. But a building is, you know, I liken a building to a human body. If there is something going wrong, if you have an illness or sickness, the body or the building's going to show you. You're going to feel it, you're going to hear it, you're going to see it. So most of the time, a lot of the symptoms are very visible in terms of what's going on wrong with your building. So we'll talk about that and what we see. From a structural point of view, there's two reasons why the structure may be affected. One, it was built in a way that doesn't satisfy the needs of today or the exterior environment of today. Or two, there's something that presented itself in the conditioning or putting the pieces together or the wearing down of those pieces that has started affecting the structure. So I want to give you the summary ahead of time so that people aren't worried. Building's in good condition structurally. It was built to be used for your needs, for your loading capacity, for all your events. It's built to withstand the exterior environments of Detroit and the weather events and all that stuff. We are finding that there are localized areas that have some structural conditions. We are sourcing that to more moisture infiltration in different areas that Lauren and I will get into later. So starting from the ground up, some of the things that you probably have noticed around the building that is a structural condition that I've noted and kind of taken into. You see the concrete, in the basement, concrete foundation walls, concrete framing, steel framing that you can see above you in the basement. Really good condition. I don't see any issues with water damage or subsurface damage in the basement. That's a good thing because basements are usually where a lot of problems can occur. At this level, you'll notice some of the cracks that you're sitting over and around. Those, I believe, are settlement cracks at the time of construction. We've got a deep basement here. We're sitting on soil right here. The building just needed to settle into its spot, and because there aren't any joints in the concrete floor that we're sitting on, it just wanted to settle differentially, so that's why you have these longitudinal cracks. I don't think that they're an issue anymore. I think the building's kind of settled in its space, but obviously that affected your finish, your terrazzo finish on the flooring. There are some open joints around as you walk around the concrete block walls and in some of the stairwells. That we believe is some moisture infiltration, which we can fix once we identify the sources of where that water is coming from. And I wanted to touch on, you can go to the next slide. Yeah. So obviously Lauren had touched on it, the Beaugrain Boulevard elevation. In the third floor and below the roof, you obviously some moisture damage. We popped some of those tiles. We poked our head around those, up in those tiles to make sure that the actual building skeleton was in good condition despite the water damage. For the most part, it is. The steel is in really good condition still. It's got a little bit of rusting because water keeps affecting it. So again, we have to find the source of the water, treat it, and create a more watertight envelope. But the steel framing is still in good condition. So I've just identified in this map just the areas that I had found some structural conditions. So you'll notice that most of it is the underside of the roof, which we can talk about later, and also the stairwells. So the stairwells have a lot of open joints around the steel, a lot of block, not a lot, but some areas where the block has moved. and some areas where some of the mortar has popped out in the mortar joints. Again, that is moisture infiltration. Once we figure out the source of the moisture, it should not continue damaging those spaces. And even though you do see those conditions, the structure behind it is still in very good condition.
Thank you. I want to preface this, I am not an engineer. I am representing SES who couldn't be here today, so if you do have any questions about your mechanical, your electrical, or plumbing, please make sure to talk to us. We will get back to you on that. But all of this is in the report if you wanted to look into this further, but this is also a snapshot of just the education building. SES did analyze all 3 of your buildings, and so you have a little more robust information, but for this presentation we wanted to just focus on the issues you're seeing here. For the most part, the systems that you have are at the end of their useful life and they should be replaced. You do have a heat exchanger, air conditioners, radiators, all of those things are related to mechanical and they're heating your building. Your electrical, it says that it's no longer supported, and so those are kind of things that you just need to do updates on. And then one other suggestion was eventually, this is not a main priority, but eventually switching out to LED and things like that will be more efficient for your building, and then also save you money on bills and things like that. The water heater that is serving your building is at the end of its life as well. But the fixtures in your lavatories and everything like that are all in good condition. There was one note that your water fountains are not accessible, so if you were going to do an upgrade to something like that, that would be something to think about. So again, not an engineer, but please, if you have questions, let me know. This was where we were going to do a break. I don't know if anyone needs a break or if we just want to keep rolling.
Keep going.
Keep going. We can break as needed. So the next thing we wanted to talk about is really break down the building analysis to just help you understand a little bit of what we're seeing, what we're thinking of the next steps. So to really break it down, even just by your building construction, I really love this photo because it really shows you what it is. It is a structural steel frame. Jenna can also talk to that more. You have columns that you can see here behind me, and then the steel frame structure that you see. And then your second material are these precast concrete panels. They were actually hung off of your steel structure, and so that is kind of the second thing that you have. And then in between, you have your curtain wall or your other types of windows. So it's a really simple design. It's also very similar to other designs in this era. This mid-century modern was a very minimalist design with clean lines, large windows, geometric patterns that you see. So it is very typical to this time period as well as brutalist architecture. I really like these photos to show you just how they were installing these panels. I also highlighted a little bit about how you can see that that profile on the left is actually just the corner panel, so it appears solid, but what they actually had was a notch around the structure. And then, thank you. And then this is a shot up where they clipped the concrete panels to that structure. And so that's the existing condition on the left. This is a detail I drew on the right, kind of estimating what that looks like. Also, building drawings were not super well detailed sometimes, and so we're kind of adding what we know of and our best guesses to understand how this building was constructed. So. And then here's just another shot just to really understand this system, because once we move forward and talk about water infiltration, it will start to make a lot of sense why you're seeing the things you're seeing. So that image on the bottom left is the back side of a concrete panel that has been painted, and then that's where the fin tube radiators were hung. The image on the top left is how your windows are set directly on top of your concrete panels. So there's really no other systems besides concrete panel, window, and then roof. So I know this is a main concern, it's always a main concern we have about buildings, but water infiltration. I wanted to note that our team here studied this a lot. We also called in some exterior envelope experts we have at our firm to also study this. So these are things that we have gathered, and water infiltration is also not necessarily a one and done type of thing. Water will always find ways into buildings no matter what. You probably go through this at your houses and things like that as well. What we wanted to call out was that there are 5 probably primary areas that water is going to get into the building. So the first one is what we're calling bulk water at masonry. That's, at your joints, along your masonry walls. The nice thing is you don't have a lot of joints on your concrete panels. They're such large panels, they're about 8 feet long, that you don't have too many to worry about. The roof termination is always going to be a big issue. Roofing, flat roofs especially, and making sure that is not an area that water is coming in, and also penetrations that are on the roof. This bottom left really shows you 2 columns side by side, and how you can kind of see some of the ponding and the debris that are there, and so that is an area that water could come in at the base of those columns. The one on the right I wanted to show you, and I apologize with the backlit, it's a little dark, but it's a photo of the windows and how even the glazing and the metal are all areas that water can come in. And then we talked a little bit about where the window meets the concrete panel, that's another area. And not infiltration, but condensation is you have a system where you have just the exterior wall, and so in the cold winter months, that water can condensate on the inside of your windows and cause moisture in those rooms. This is just a diagram I put together, kind of graphically showing you all these spaces through your building. If you can imagine, the wall on the left is this wall right here that connects to the church. And then the wall on the right is your exterior wall that you're seeing on the right. The top part of your roof is masonry up there, and that is also why, like Jenna was saying, you are seeing some of that damage in that north stairwell. Kind of my little squiggles are showing you how water can get in at the base of your roof. You can see how large of an area your windows do take up, and so that is something to be concerned of. And then really the water that can come in at joints. Your joints are always going to be the weakest part of your building, and so that's kind of the concern that we have. Oh, yes. So a building section. What we basically did is we took a cut, almost actually exactly where I'm standing from, running from this wall all the way to that wall, looking north. So we wanted to show all the structure and all of the walls and all of the columns and the doors and things like that, just so that you can see the 3 different floors and how it's lining up and how the things that we're worried about is lining up as well. So if you look at the bottom, the fellowship hall, that's where we're standing, and then 2nd floor, 3rd floor, and roof up above us. So to talk a little bit, and we do have a breakout session that is focused on really the water damage in the 3rd floor, because that is the main concern. We want to understand the timeline of that damage. We want to understand if there still is any water coming in. And we want to know more about what the repair was and things like that, so that we can accurately kind of assess where the building is at and where the repair is at and if it's going to be an issue. So the thing I like about this diagram is it really shows that the most water damage you're seeing is at those 2 rear classrooms closest to the alley. But there is also this kind of damage in the middle in the hallway, and that was at first kind of going, why is that? And then the stairwell as well, you can see there's some water damage in there. If we go to the next slide, Sandra, thank you. This is actually showing you areas of concern that our team has put together, and it really directly correlates to the areas of damage you saw. That number 2 is a roof hatch or an old mechanical system that has been covered, and that actually lines up perfectly to what you were seeing in that hallway. So it's nice to kind of see these 2 together, because then you can really understand more about where concerns of ours are and how they're showing up on your building. Number 4 is the area directly adjacent to your stairwell. And like Jenna was talking about, If water is getting into that stairwell, it is going to cause damage. And actually, I have some photos to kind of help direct this. You can see this is that roof hatch I'm talking about. It wasn't always like this. Sandra shared some photos with us from 2022. And so that they did repair this and they sealed this up because that was an area that was causing damage. Things that we are still concerned about is, bases of columns. You can see that crack on the column base there, whether that is an active damage or it was stained from the, water buildup. Those are areas that we really want to monitor. And then this upper left image I think is great because it shows the roof door up above and it shows your third floor door down below, and you can see all the damage that is coming, and that is really correlated to water that could be coming in from that door and then dripping down and causing damage to the finishes on the level below. One thing we wanted to note, and it's something to just be aware of, your roof drains as they are. One thing to understand about the design of the roof was it was meant to be occupied. It's also in that time period where minimalism sometimes equated to like simple details and things like that. And your roof is a concrete structure with these joint lines that now has a fluid applied membrane on it. So one thing that we're suggesting is seeing if your roof drains are cleared, making sure that they're adequate for the flow of water that you have, because you only have 2 roof drains right now, and that can be a concern if the water is pooling and it just has nowhere to go. Do you want to add?
What would those drains be made of? The pipes?
Metal.
They're,
They should be metal,
Metal.
and then they have,
they're cast?
yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to hit on 2 things about the original construction, is that this building really is a testament to the time in which it was built. Steel framing and the precast paneling, that was the 1950s and 1960s was a great time for the construction industry because it saw the ability for mass production of lightweight cladding materials, so we were able to switch from concrete and masonry that needed to be poured or laid up by hand to more factory produced, lightweight, could be tilted into place, precast paneling. With that though, because it was a new material, there wasn't experience with how to detail it, how it would deal with being adjacent to different materials like masonry, like steel, how it would fend off weather. And so it's a beautiful and elegant design, but to Lauren's point, it's a simplified design that didn't have a lot of history behind it, and so a lot of the issues we're finding is in the simplified or lack thereof in detailing and how the water that's meant to hit the building, how we take it and push it away from the areas we want it to avoid. So we really want to figure out how to make the water move in a way that will prevent for future damage, and there are ways to do that.
Thanks, Jenna. That's actually a really good point. So at this point, we are only halfway, and the point of a visioning workshop is that we want to hear from you about programming, goals, long-term visions that you have, because it helps us direct what our treatment recommendations are going to be. We did have a kind of a priority list just to get you, a snapshot of what we're thinking. And the way that we have the priority is that there are some things that no matter what your long-term vision is, you will need to address some of these things. Like you will need to address water infiltration in order, to have your building for generations to come. That is not going to change, but we also want you guys to understand that if long-term visioning is completely redoing some program, that can change, maybe how we're going to address the ground floor or the second floor or things like that. So what we are suggesting is that you have an investigation type of priority phase. There needs to be a little bit more information done about the roof. Simple things like how is the roof detailed? It could also include maybe a core of the construction. There's testing that you can do to make sure that there isn't any infiltration and water happening. You can do a flood testing, a hose testing. I've done things where you have plumbers to do drain testing, where you basically flood your roof drains to make sure that there's no breaks in your pipes and things like that. All of these are something that we think would be a great way to put together more information to understand how your roof is functioning. The windows, there's also testing you can do at the windows. They're called spray testing, and it's basically a hose and a rack that's kind of parallel to your window, and it mimics a rain event, a very intense rain event. So it will mimic, heavy rain for however many minutes, and then you remove the water, and then you see if there is any water leaking or water infiltration. And so these are things that you can do that you don't have to wait, for a day it's rainy or something like that. The other thing is a blower door test. This is really more for the performance of your building to understand if you're leaking a lot of air. We all, know that in the winter it's hard when you're heating a building and you feel like you're just sucking air and all that heat out. And so this is some testing that you can do. Do you want to talk about the concrete?
Oh, yeah. So we are asking for the next step to be investigation because we know where the building is being damaged, but we don't know the exact source. It could be from a couple of different places. And so in order for us to figure out how best to treat it, we need to identify the source and then stop that source from continuing. So we don't know if it's coming down from the roof, if it's coming down or coming in through the joints around the windows, or if it's coming and pooling behind the panels themselves. And so that's why if we were to open up localized small areas in each of these conditions, we can really hone in on where the water is coming from and treat it that very specifically that way. For the panels on the outside, I was looking around the outside, and the panels from the street level look in really great condition. They're very thin, but they're really doing their work. They're not cracking under pressure. They're not pooling water within them and cracking themselves. So they look really good. And so it's not giving us a clear indication of where the water that's coming from the outside and then developing on the inside, where that's coming from. So we did see that on the inside, along this elevation at the upper floors, we did see fireproofing that's gone, exposed steel, rusted steel on the inside. But I'm curious if that same condition is on the outside, because if you remember Lauren's section, those panels are directly attached to the steel. So if water is getting through those panels or through the window seals around the panels and then going on the inside between the panels and the steel, that steel could actually be in a little bit worse condition than what I'm seeing on the inside, which is somewhat protected. So just understanding the holistic movement of water through your building will help us address the localized issues and prevent it from happening again.
Perfect. So then we rank down to medium and low priority. These are things that we know are, issues that we should address, but they're not the first things. First thing is always going to be water. So just water intrusion, whatever level, needs to be addressed first. Your HVAC upgrades and things like that, your building is still working, and so it will keep working, but eventually, like the report was saying, some of these systems are no longer serviced, and so that is something that to upgrade you would want to do. Before you clean up your damaged materials, you want to make sure that you don't have any more water. So that kind of goes hand in hand. You do have some exterior that would be good to fix. You do have some spalls, very small. I think I counted like 3 in total, and a couple cracks and things like that. And then the broken windows, things that are a safety hazard, you'd want to get fixed as well. Low priority, I know it is not aesthetically, but as Jenna was saying, the cracks in the floor aren't moving anymore. It's unfortunately just something that concrete likes to do. It likes to crack at every 30 feet or so, and that's kind of what you're seeing on your floor here in the fellowship hall. And then you do have some, sorry, we had a question.
You said that there are some of our systems that are no longer serviced anymore. Which ones are?
I believe it is the electrical panel, and I think You'll have to, I know there's more information in the report, and we can get back to you with Paul, but I believe Paul said that some of the panels themselves are just no longer serviced, not that, and it is pretty common that they just, the company is no longer around or something like that.
And that's in this building?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you do have some newer panels in other buildings, so I wanted to note that not all of your systems are the same age. You do have replacements and you do have things like that found in the other building. We just wanted to focus mostly on what we were seeing here in the basement here. And then you do have some damaged materials. That's pretty typical, wear and tear. Those are very low priority because it's not something that necessarily is harming your building, but it's just something to keep in mind.
Are these electrical lighting updates something that, like, if we wanted to put?
Yes. So what they suggested was that you would move to LEDs,
Yeah.
more energy efficient and things like that. But you have so many lights in this building that I know it's a big, ask, and so it's not necessarily something you need to do in order right now, but something to keep in mind for the future.
But do we need the electrical upgrade before you could do that?
That is a great question. Ruth will write that down, and I'll get back to Paul on that one, because, again, I apologize. I know what I know, and I don't want to try and steer anyone wrong. Perfect. So the next part, actually, we have some prompts at your table if you have looked at them. We have some sticky notes. We really wanted to have this be an open time for you to, maybe you can raise your hand, we can jot things down, you can write them down on your sticky notes, but we have a couple of prompts. Some are like, what is some long-term goals that you have for the church? It could be something like, I want this to, I want to have a school full-time, or I want to have like after-school programming however many days of the week. Those are kind of long-term goals. Or I want to have, another building or a new bathroom or something that's like a very kind of maybe not right away that you're going to get to it, but it's something to think about. And we're saying like dream big. I know everyone in this room can dream big because we love to hear no matter, I understand it is hard to get beyond like, oh, well, we have to fix this or something like that. But we're asking for you to think very big brushstrokes of like, what would be something you would love to see? We also have a couple prompts of like, what is your main concern? Is it, maintenance needs? Is it programming needs? Is it something like that? We want to gather information on that. And then, I can't remember my other prompts. I had a couple of them out there. But does anyone want to raise their hand, or do you all? You can.
Everyone?
I'm ready for you. Does anyone have a value or a treatment or a long-term goal that they want to say?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Let's hear it.
Well, it really doesn't have to do with this building, this unit at all,
That's okay?
okay? One of the things that I proposed at a previous meeting was that we use, we own the building next to us, and we own the little parking lot I call it the postal stand.
Yes.
And what I thought would be a good use for that would be to use those two lots and a portion of 441 to create a 4 or 5 floor parking structure with an all-weather entrance into the church.
Exactly, because right now you have people park in whatever structure they can find, right? Is that correct?
Yeah.
It's a great one. I have a couple, if you're visual learners like I am. This is kind of the major goal that we have. Oh, in the back.
In response to what Ron just said, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
My question is, because we are a national accepted site, that building falls under the national site recognition, is that Possible. It's a historic site, National Historic Site.
So the question that you're getting at, and Ruth, maybe you can jump in here. Ruth, sorry.
So I just want to be clear which buildings we're talking about. There's this building, there's the original church building, there's the annex.
No, not the bar. He's talking about the German Reformed Lutheran Church and the candy store that's annexed to it. That's the two buildings he's speaking of.
Oh,
But
okay.
he's really talking about the candy store and the bar.
Mhm.
I'm not talking about the bar. That is not a national historical site.
Right.
But the building on the west side of the building, it's my understanding that when we got national site recognition, that was part of the national site recognition. Is that true?
It's, as far as I know, it's this three-piece building.
No, this is not.
This
This
is.
is separate from what I'm talking about. This
Oh.
came later. This came in 2018, I think. This didn't come into recognition until like 2023.
Yeah, we'll look into that. I understand what you're
Mhm.
asking, but I do want to say that I want everybody to feel free to give their ideas, and what I want us to do is we'll scrutinize the ideas later, but right now I want us just to put the ideas out there. So feel safe to declare your idea, and we'll look into that,
Thank you.
Mr. Robinson.
Point
But
noted.
Phil, I want you all to feel safe, to put your idea out there, and we can scrutinize them later, but right now, put them out there, because this is how brainstorming works.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
What about incorporating that third floor into something that provide income for us, like a daycare or office space we could rent out? Just,
Great idea.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing that it really helps us to, because then there are certain things that we have to look at as far as codes and, how do we do things that would impact our recommendations. So, yeah.
Is there a chance to make us more green from an energy standpoint? Can we go solar or something?
Yeah, I mean, that's something we can definitely have the SES, they do a lot of looking at how to make things,
And to that
More
effect,
efficient,
I
yeah.
mentioned this to you all before, but we spend a lot of money on steam heat every winter. It's like we have like a $30,000 bill every winter. And the main reason why we have this is that we don't have a clear way to regulate the steam heat. So everywhere gets heated, and some places are much hotter than other places. So we could save a lot of money if we could regulate the steam heat better and have more even distributed temperature.
I can speak to that if you want. So what the pastor is talking about, and what was mentioned in the report, is that when you get certain systems that are older and beyond their life, you lose the advantages of new technology. So if it's a new system in the building, even if you are still using radiators and different things, you could have controls on those in a newer system. So it is a bigger ticket item if you're replacing the heating and mechanical system, but then it will allow you to control different zones and say how things are heated and cooled, and you could say these floors are not in service, so they could be at a lower temperature than other areas in the building. So that could happen with a new system, and that could be a big long-term goal that could be added to this. Go ahead.
I listened to your assessment of the issues within the structure. Do you have any thoughts on what it approximately would cost to get the structure up to the safety?
So that is, the cost is part of the project, but it is actually supposed to happen in the last 50% of the project. So we have a cost estimator. I didn't even mention that. On our team, there is one other consultant, which is a cost estimator. It's DMC, correct? So DMC is our cost estimator, and whatever we come back with, so if our mechanical engineers say we should think about this type of mechanical system that could go into the building, that could have controls, that could help with cost and energy efficiency, we put that into the recommendations in this next 50% of the phase, and then he'll price that. So your ideas that you're coming up with now, we will put that into the second half of this report, and then come back with a list of costs for these ideas and implementation that you're thinking about. Then you could make better decisions. So this end of this report is supposed to help you say, these are the ideas we have, here's the costs per idea, right? And then you come back together as a body and say, okay, how do we fundraise or go for more grants for certain things that we want to do, and you have an idea what the cost of those items are. So that is to come, so please keep your ideas coming.
Yeah, Mr. Little, if I can respond to that.
It'll just be later.
So the last part of the project is cost estimation for what they have looked at. I want you all to know though, I need you all to make sure you remember this, that this research study covered the education building. It does not cover the two other buildings, with the exception of the mechanical items that are in the education building that funnel into the rest of the building. But we have to raise another $30,000 to research the whole entire 3 buildings. So this only covers the education building. Now, I have brought in 3 structural engineers since I've been here to do a walkthrough with me, and I've asked them to give me guesstimates. We have to prepare ourselves for a multi-million-dollar project to get our building where it needs to be. All right. So just be prepared for that. But this HSR is very helpful. I applied for a grant not too long ago, and the grant said, do you have an HSR? Yes or no? Because we're working on one, I had to say no, we didn't get approved for that grant. So for grants we apply for in the future, at least once the education building is done, we can say that we have an HSR, and it's just going to really help us. So I just wanted y'all to have that point of clarity.
And I also want to note that, you know, when we do the cost estimate, when we do the treatment recommendations, we can do a lot of phasing. So we can say, you know, these are your highest priorities for, you know, making sure that the building is watertight and fixes this thing. You know, sometimes there might be like economies, like if you do, you know, something is maybe not quite ready to be done, but if you do it all at once, it might, you know, cost you a little bit less in the long run. So that's the kind of thing that we're going to be trying to look at and trying to piece it out so that it's easiest for you to get grants to fundraise for different pieces of it.
When we're thinking about these upgrades and everything and your recommendations, are they all going to lead us, I know somebody said green, are they going to lead us to like a LEED certification? Or could they? And then my second one, in a different direction, is any of these building updates, are they going to be in conjunction with the possible restructuring of our streets around us and what may or may not be happening there?
So you're talking about, the first part you were asking about was the sustainability level for the building. And the second part you were asking about is, will the street calming design be a part of what affects your building?
That's right.
Okay, I'll answer the latter first because I think that's easier. I think the street calming piece is going to help the pedestrian approaches to your building, but it won't affect the building at all with what is planned with Greentown street calming plan. I haven't seen the full plan, but that's usually how it goes, and I can clarify that if needed. The first part, when you're talking about sustainability, it's a whole process to look at if you're trying to make the whole building sustainable, especially if you're talking about LEED certification and things like that. That would entail like things like the whole building envelope and putting in insulated windows, and when now you have single pane type windows. So it's a whole different exercise. But there are some well building things you could do, like this being a church, and you basically enhance the social equity of a place. You can get equity certification for the project because of the programming and things you do in the building. So there are possibilities, and then that's another way to look at funding. But as far as getting a LEED certification, that's a whole process that it would be more in depth than probably financially wise, that the church would probably want to get into.
Sister Little, so the streetscape, we have a person prepared to give a presentation on the streetscape, so stay tuned for that. But the streetscape project is going to affect, one way it's going to affect us in our building, but it's going to basically, as it stands, essentially eliminate our access to our side parking lot. If you know our side parking lot, we park in it coming from Monroe, okay? And so we would have to redesign it so we could get access to it from the back alley and somehow still parking. As it stands, that would be very challenging right now. But we are working on that. Greektown has been alerted to that, and we're meeting about that soon to try to figure that out. But Miss Little, I would like to ask you, could you explain a little bit more about what you mean by social equity, increasing our social equity? I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, so with the well building certification, if you're doing programming within your building, like say if you were to put a daycare center in here on the upper level, you're providing a social equity assessment or programming to the community. And actually there is an entity that certifies for that, and you could become known as, and there are not a lot of well-certified buildings in the state. So you could say we're providing programs to help the community, we're providing educational programming, we're providing, whatever it is you're providing to community, and you can become certified for that. I can get you more information on that.
I wanted you to explain, because I just wanted to be clear that when we have programs like our human trafficking seminars,
Yes.
our literacy, our robotics, we do it to help the community, but we also do it to show that we matter beyond just ourselves. It helps us to increase our social equity so that if we get a meeting with the Ford Foundation, we can say that we are doing more than just praising the Lord. We're also helping people with literacy. We're also helping to make the community a better place. We're also raising domestic violence awareness. We're also, et cetera, whatever you want to feel, and teaching kids about STEM. And so a corporation or nonprofit is more ready to help somebody who's helping others than this institution that's trying to help itself. So if you're interested in supporting these programs or volunteering or being a part of it, that has a direct connection to us fundraising to help preserve our space.
Very true.
Can I put something else up on the vision board? And I don't know how to put it really, but I'm just thinking about more interactive technology in the whole building here. It's,
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, it's
just
60
not-
years old, and we've come a long way since.
Barney Rubble loved this, but I don't know,
And so we've worked with projects before, and we can talk to our mechanical engineers as well of how we can put technology in the building. I worked on another project that basically one of the things they did provide to the community is free Wi-Fi to the community. So when they basically redid their technical infrastructure for their IT, they included a separate outside Wi-Fi for the public. And that became a social service piece as well.
I like that. Greektown used to have a free Wi-Fi.
Did I know?
They used to have a Greektown Wi-Fi. It went away for some reason.
Any other ideas? Anything's on the third floor? Anything?
Well, once again, it doesn't only pertain to this third of our property, but solar heating. I don't know if it was mentioned before.
Yeah.
That would be something I'd like to see us do.
Lauren's taking notes. You still can leave post-it notes at the tables. We'll pick them up. Anything?
Oh, yeah. I think someone actually suggested this before, but I want to re-emphasize. We have a beautiful commercial kitchen back here. And it's lots of people in the community who are actually looking for places where they can have like pop-ups and, cook their food and
They say ghost kitchens now.
Exactly. But I mean, that's a great opportunity to fix it up and get it up to code and have other people rent it out and have revenue for the church too.
All right, that's a great idea.
Ghost kitchen.
Yeah, they call them ghost kitchens where, people can run catering things out of it during the day when the church is not using it, and on Sunday you use it, and you can make revenue on the church all through the week, basically.
Right.
Yeah. Any other ideas? Any rooftop ideas?
We had
Got two hands.
we had wonderful jazz on the roof and music on the roof as a fundraiser, and people have asked us when we're going to do it again.
Ah, that would be great. Bringing back an event that you had before. In the back.
Yes, piggyback off of Sister dealing with the food in the kitchen and so forth. I was a wish list. This room here should be more of an entertainment, gathering, celebration type of room. I understand it is utilized for plays and things of that nature, but specifically for lighting and everything. When you're eating your food, like right now, it's very dark if you look at your plate.
Yeah.
And you cannot see the entrance on the particular entrance of that plate. But piggybacking off that same idea is to also have availability of having an event on the roof. So an outside kitchen, just on one wall, where we can service that particular group that's on the outside.
That's very interesting. Even if it wasn't like a full ventilated kitchen, even like barbecue or some kind of grilling out there.
And we did that. And that,
Okay.
that's a wonderful way to enhance your fundraising.
Great ideas. You got it coming now anymore.
Well, you know, the roof, I think, you know, we all would love to use the roof.
Yeah.
Tom. I mean, we really would like that. And even in the winter. But I mean, so I don't know if there's something we could put over it. Can it be a canopy that we can?
Well, I mean, I've been amazed by some of the igloo dining and different things that they have in the city now, that you don't even have to have a permanent structure. You could just have something that you're doing up there in the wintertime with little igloos and have people be able to rent them out. That could be very interesting. Yeah, so programming year-round the rooftop.
Yeah.
That makes sense. You have one?
Do you have accessible bathrooms on the ground floor? Or do you have to go up and down stairs and things like that?
In this building?
Well,
No.
in this building, but for your whole church, is there any
Yeah,
accessible bathrooms?
it's like over in the annex.
But do you have to go up and down stairs to get them?
Well, there's, yeah.
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 So is that
It's
something
two
like,
stairs.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, from a, this is my architect hat on.
Yeah.
So accessibility, what Lauren means, is the American with Disability Act.
Yeah.
And you're supposed to be able to come in without a level change and be able to have a facility with handicap accessibility in that facility. So like if you wanted to do that for this building, you would say, okay, when we come in the front door, we want to put a single holder restroom that's somewhere very adjacent to this space that would satisfy that ADA component.
Okay.
And which then that means you don't have any restrictions on anybody who rents out, say this first level here, or this room here, that they still would meet the Accessibility Act. And the city won't be on you about, you don't have accessible restrooms and things like that. So that's what she's bringing up.
Okay.
You had a comment here.
Oh, comment, go ahead.
So I went to like a lot of things recently that they've held at like churches, and most recently I went to this candle like performance, and they had like instruments and stuff there, and that's like another good idea to do to like the auditorium to like raise money.
Okay. Candlelight
performance?
Candlelight performance, musical performance. Very good idea.
Acoustics.
That would be. Give a shout out to what's your generation again? She's less than that. So give a shout out to your generation. That was a great idea.
So I work in the space of school programming, and there's a lot of grants that's available in Southeast Michigan that I feel like a lot of churches miss out on because they might not understand or even know about the opportunities out there. So, of course, you all can set up a school here, but then there's a way to get it funded, basically. Like an example, the city of Detroit is looking for enrichment programming for the summer, and they have an RFP, which is a request for proposal that's due tomorrow. If we have the, let's say, text of everything that Second Baptist can provide, I'm sure that this could be a location for the city of Detroit.
For summer enrichment program.
For summer enrichment program. There's another big one from the Barmer Group. If you all know who Steve Barmer is, the former CEO of Microsoft, he's from Detroit. That initiative is $53 million, where they basically have like given it to, they've given the money to United Way, and then they get like distributed all throughout Southeast Michigan. It's like a multi-year agreement. I actually work on half of the enrichment for Detroit Public Schools, so I know that it generates a lot of money. Where if you have a space, they're looking for nonprofits to say, we got a space, we got a building, this is what we're providing. And Second Baptist clearly has the real estate for it. Now it's about getting the grant writers in place and paying for that and then just applying. Because these people are talking about millions. And most of the grassroots organizations within the city, they really can't carry the work because they don't have a space like this. And for those that do have, like for those that do get the grants, they don't even have the space, and Second Baptist can subcontract that out.
Very true.
There was a conference I went to last week in Novi for it's called OST. That's the out of school time grant from the state of Michigan, the N32 grant. There's people that apply all over the state. That's over $30 million. So some of these boards offering these free programs, they probably got an OST grant, or they probably got the Barmer Group. Right, and that's just those two issues. That's not counting if you're in education like me, where you get Title I funding, which is like federal funds. So I like highly encourage Second Baptist to look into that, like investing in the grant writer, paying to get some type of document to say this is what we can provide, and then it's nothing but copy and paste on these grants. These grants come around every year. And for the record, like I run an organization called Blue Car, and we literally had 200 people at our DPS sites working. So if I can do it, I know a rich history, you know, that like, you know, Second Baptist provide, y'all to get that contract quicker than anybody, in my personal opinion. Could be wrong, but in my personal opinion, I think Second Baptist should focus on that, because there's a lot of grants that come out here from the Knight Foundation, the Kresge Foundation, the Skillman Foundation, that Second Baptist is trying to, you know, get people to come down here, and it's different. Y'all need to get them funders to pay for the space if they already have initiatives for neighborhoods, or if they already got initiatives for high school too.
I will definitely come by and have you scan my business card before I leave. So you can send a list to Pastor and myself so we can actually talk about ways to list this out maybe in the report, the different grants that the church can look for and have it be part of that. And that's a great idea. Funding, thinking about programming from a funding standpoint would be a great thing for the church to think about. So if we still don't get all of your ideas today, like you leave here and think of some great idea when you leave here, please reach out, email us, email Pastor, let them know the ideas you have, and we'll try to implement that into the report.
Okay, the grants that he is referring to, other people are referring to, this is for 2025. And the reason I'm asking if it's for 2025, you haven't told us yet when they're going to begin the, the Monroe Street project, because that
It starts next week, I think.
that's what I was saying.
Week late.
It starts next week. Okay. So if it starts next week, then being realistic, it would maybe interfere with the logistics of getting people here for the 2025 year.
Yeah, I think you're correct, and I'm thinking we're not talking about the 2025 year.
Okay.
We're talking future programs.
Because focusing on 2025, in other words, right now, focusing right now, today, you know, what are the obstacles that we're going to have?
So I think the focus for right now, 2025, is what Lauren was saying, is we're finishing this report and then we figure out a way to make this building dry and safe first. That's the first objective. But we are also, like, long-term ideas, asking for what the gentleman was talking about there. Are there things, moonshot, that we could plan for as programming-wise in the building? But yeah, first priority, like Lauren had 3 different lists up there, like high priority, low priority, and then, future. So we're gonna work through all of these steps as part of this report.
Seems like my questions, I keep jumping.
No, you're good, you're good.
I did that twice, excuse me for doing that.
No,
Because when I ask a question, they say, well, it's coming up. I'm going to show it. But I guess I keep thinking about right here, right now. What needs to be done here, now? What's going to happen right there? Like today.
Yeah, like I said, for your structure, I think the street calming thing, like you said, you're gonna have a presentation on that, and that's the Greektown Development Authority that's doing that project, right? So that's separate from you, but you're affected by it. You're affected by what's happening in your neighborhood.
Okay, you said will begin when next week? Is that
Next week. Yeah. They've been working on that since probably 2022 as well, I believe. Ruth, do you remember when? I think it was like, it's probably around the same time that roof thing started here. Yeah. So they basically had an RFP out for that in 2022, 2023. They hired a engineering team to design the street trafficking design as well as the pedestrian flow that they're looking for in Greektown. And they probably had engagement meetings for that along the way. So that's been going on, them talking about this street project for the last, 3 years probably.
Late 2021.
Yeah, late 2021. I was off by a year. So so they've been planning and designing this street calming piece for the last almost 4 years. And then construction. So they went through design, they went through community engagement, and now they're starting construction for this project. So that's almost like your neighborhood is doing something that probably everybody wasn't aware of, but it's happening. So now, if you want to look at, when they give you the presentation, how you want to react to it, we could talk about that if you have ideas of how you want to react to it after you see your presentation. And that can be implemented in the report if it's something you want to react to with that. Is it your parking lot design? We could just talk about that's coming and plan for that, and just have a line item of what you want to do and put that in there. Got a couple of hands. Right. Who was first? Oh, right here.
Yeah, I was going to respond to what you said.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, so there's different grants. There's city grants, there's state grants, there's grants that come from schools. So like, case in point, the city of Detroit has a grant that I'm looking at right now. It's due March 21st at 5 p.m. That's for this summer. So if Second Baptist wants to put itself in that position, you basically got 5 days to do it. And I'm assuming that it can be done within 5 days. A lot of boards kind of do stuff at the last minute. If Second Baptist isn't ready this summer, the state of Michigan has the OST grant that they're preparing for right now. They release it in September, and it's for funding for
Next time.
2026 starting January. So there's different ways to go about it, but if church service can be had on Sunday, I would recommend doing things to try and get things in the summertime, because it generates a lot of money for people that probably like volunteering. Like there's money allocated in the millions to say that there's some type of, program that's being hosted here. Rather than using that kitchen, that could be like culinary class, that could be utilizing this space. This is the work that I do with Detroit Public Schools. And Detroit Public Schools got its own. So I would personally say it's more than one way to do it. And definitely, like, if you want to do something this week, I can send it over to the pastor today, and then it'll be due Friday. But outside of that, you can apply for one with the state, which will give you like a few months to prepare. So, but I would just encourage Second Baptist to get in a position, because every year the state is issuing out the money, the city is issuing out the money, the schools are issuing out the money. So I would just encourage that.
Yeah.
Second question, very great response. It's year after year that you can plan for with the grants.
Yeah, so just to go back to the discussion about making the building ADA accessible, the first floor. I was just thinking, because instead of just building a whole set of bathrooms on this side, over there where the hump goes down and then up, is it possible just to like fill that in with some type of filler or cement and then make it like a straight walkway? Because that's the only thing really that's hindering the first floor from being accessible to a bathroom.
So are you thinking on the other side of the elevator?
Yeah, so if you make a right, you go down 2 steps and then it's a short path and you go back up. So is it possible just to fill in that opening with something instead of like building a whole bathroom set for this side?
Like nothing stopping it from being filled in.
Right.
Yeah, it's like bridging.
It's just an idea to think about.
We can look at that. Yeah. Great idea. Another idea right here.
Another idea. I'm asking a question. I came in extremely late. I'm one of the people that said, start over with the beginning. No. I was trying to figure out when the work start. Will it start with the basement or will it start with the electricity? Our cellar is part of the tour. I guess you know all that stuff. Will we start with the cellar or will it start with?
So,
Now, again, I just got it.
so towards the end of this HSR, they'll give us another presentation and they'll recommend a timeline for the repairs. So this is just giving us a broad overview of what we're facing, but the timeline has not been developed yet.
So see, since you're just coming in, we're 50% through the process. This is a 50% report out and asking questions, and then we'll come back again once we take ideas that we're talking about here, continue our work to figure out how the water is coming in, and then we'll put more information into the report of suggestion, and we'll have a cost estimate for those suggestions. That'll be the next 50%, and we'll come back again and talk to you again about more concrete things. Like right now, that's why we're asking for ideas, because we've not finished anything. We're 50% through the process.
What would happen if this education building, which is the newest structure, became the main structure, and there was the possibility of a sanctuary?
I guess we
given the fact that the other 2 buildings are so much older and might be prohibitive, cost might be cost prohibitive.
I guess I have to ask, since this church is almost 200 years old, how modern are you talking about? Because the modern day sanctuary, they like a stage. They like, light up on the stage. The choir's not up here. The choir then comes and sings and then comes back and leaves. It depends on how modern your church wants to be. That this space could, serve as a sanctuary. That sanctuary space could serve for like a theater and bigger things to come. But it's how receptive is the church body at thinking big. That was a big picture thing. That's why I said mind blown. You were like, that was a big picture thing. That's just something for everybody to think about. Yeah, but this space in the modern day younger church, this would be a fine space to have.
Yeah,
that's right. That's
yes.
right.
Well, actually, we were talking, and it was the brainstorming that made me think about it.
Yeah, that's a good one. They would just put a sound system here, some lights, and all the audio technical stuff is in here. It had lights in it. Yeah, that is the modern church, definitely.
Yeah.
All right. We'll think about that one. Any more ideas? All right. I'm up again, right, to go next. So I appreciate all the great ideas. Like I said, it doesn't have to stop here. The pastor has our contact information. You can send him the email and stuff, and he'll forward it to us if you have some ideas you're thinking about. You go search online and you had this epiphany of something we could do with this building because you've seen some reuse of something somebody else has done in another building. Just please continue to reach out. So like I said, the grade out area is what we have completed so far. We have, we got the contract awarded for the project. Our team has been out here with our field survey, research, That's included our mechanical, our structural engineer, and they all looked at the systems. We gave the draft report to the church, and that's what we're going through now. This is the 50% draft. We identified the areas where the water infiltration were, where there's damage on the 3rd floor, possible ways that we find out how to stop the water from coming in. And today we are at our visioning workshop. So the next steps is that we continue the report. We take your ideas of what you've talked about today. Our team continues our research on how to stop the water infiltration with all of our engineers. We look at what it would cost to do some things like LED lighting, what it would cost to put in mechanical systems with controls. And then we put a cost estimator, is also a part of our team. The cost estimator will start to put dollar amounts to those ideas that we've been talking about. And then we'll come back to you after we have all of that. We figured out like, oh, if you seal the joints of the panel outside, that'll stop the water from coming in, because you have elastic membrane that's in between those joints. That would help that. We come back with all of those types of things in the next 50% plus the cost estimate, and you could see that in June. And then we'll have a presentation. We'll be finished with that in June. We'll probably have a presentation again to wrap up the project in August. By that time, you'll be in the middle of street construction, and you'll know the full effects of that too. So like I said, anything that you start to realize after you had your presentation and after construction is had, we have some time between now and May to get those ideas about the street effects that your church is going to feel. We can get those implemented as well as we're working through. All right, so we'll be back.
All right, so before we conclude, does anybody have any questions you'd like to ask of me, I suppose? Any questions? Yes?
Why is it that you can't regulate the heat? Where is the heat coming from now?
I don't want to get 100% on this, but a lot of the building has steam piping and steam heat coming through it. And with the older systems, it is like a valve controlling to turn on and off the steam to different areas. So it's very large zone based. It's not a duct system that's blowing.
It's only one boiler control feeding all the buildings.
We could find out, and I can give you the write-up of what the system is. There's a boiler that's actually below this building, and that, yeah, go ahead.
So our steam heat comes from the city, and so, yeah, and so we.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah, so.
I thought that you had a boiler here, you couldn't regulate.
No, but yeah, if we did, we're not using it. Whether the steam heat comes from the city, and we're not able to necessarily, well, at least we don't know how to regulate it just yet. But they're working on it. All right. Any others? All right. So I want to tell you, I feel like this is a good place to end. We've had a long day today. So this is what I want to do. I want to, well, before I say this, let's clap one more time for the Quinn Evans group. They worked so hard. And this project is so amazing. You've been so kind and have really gone above and beyond to help Second Baptist. And I thank them because they normally don't present these on the weekends, but I told them to get the best Second Baptist participation, it'll be best to do it on a Sunday. And so I'm so happy that they are here. So can we clap for them again? All right, yes. All right, and I have something I want to tell you. Don't leave though. I have 2 announcements. Yes, Sister Williams.
I just want to ask everybody to leave your plastic water bottles on your table. I'll pick them up so I can recycle.
Okay, leave plastic water bottles on the table. Sister Williams, we're going to get them recycled. I want to let you know that for the past couple of years, we've had a 7 Last Words program here that I've been very proud of, and it's been great participation. This year, because of the Streetscape Project, I'm unaware how things are going to be around that time, particularly for having a guest experience. And so I called and talked with Pastor Nicholas Hood, Plymouth United Church of Christ, and he has agreed to partner with Second Baptist and host the 7 Last Words at his congregation. And so we want you to be aware of that. So we will be working on that. The second thing is that the streetscape presentation, I was going to ask the presenter to present that after this, but I think we've had enough information for today. It's been a lot of information, amen?
Amen.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask that presenter to present that information instead of my Wednesday night Bible study class. So for Wednesday night, if you sign in at 6:30 to DetroitBibleStudy.com, you will be able to learn more about how the streetscape impacts our congregation, okay? We are working with Greektown, and we are advocating for our church in the midst of this project. Please come to that meeting if you have any ideas or concerns or anything you want to be raised to Greektown. We would be more than happy to take it to them. Finally, I want you to know that regarding the roof project, which was poorly done, we are moving forward with legal action with the contractor who did the roof. They currently are in the process of being served for the poor job that they did on the roof project.
Amen.
And so we are looking for a replace and repair, not just a patch. Okay, that's what we're looking for. So this means that if we get what we want out of legal proceedings, we may be going through a roof project again. Okay, but that is better than having a roof that was poorly installed for the next 50 years.
Amen.
All right. So again, we thank Quinn Evans. We look forward to continuing to work with them, and let's be prayerful for our church. We're continuing to fight the good fight of faith that our ancestors handed down to us. Amen. Can I say a closing prayer?
Yes.
All right. Dear Lord in heaven, we thank you so much for this 189th church anniversary. We thank you for the wonderful service and the sermon that was given. We thank you for the refreshments and those who have worked so hard to make sure that we were refreshed with food and drinks. We also thank you, Lord, for every last person who said, I'm not going to rush home. I'm not going to rush to the buffet. I'm going to stay here at the church and learn what's going on with my church building. Dear Lord, I thank you so much for the grant funds that we received to make this project possible. I thank you so much for Sister Little and her team, a dynamic team from Quinn Evans that have been passionate about this project, that have not dealt with it at all in a haphazard way, but have been dedicated and on fire for helping us understand our space. And I thank you for them, dear Lord, and I ask you to continue to bless them and empower them in the work that they do. And I ask you to continue to bless us, dear Lord. I ask you to touch our energy, but I also ask you to give us an imagination to picture ourselves in the future and give us the charisma to move toward that end. We thank you so much, dear Lord, for this day. We ask you to give us all safe journey home. In Jesus' name we pray and ask all these things. Amen.
Amen.
All right, thank you so much, beloved.
And before you leave, hello.
Sister Robinson.